Cancer, the very name evokes fear of pain and death. True, there have been substantial advances in detection and treatment, yet despite our so-called war on cancer, overall incidence and mortality have not significantly declined in more than a generation. Indeed, according to some estimates, by the year 2000, 40% of the population will develop some form of cancer. It's no surprise then that growing numbers of scientists and health professionals are advocating prevention, largely through major changes in what we eat and how we eat it. This week on Innovation, we'll be examining how strong the links between diet and cancer really are. Taking a look at breast and colon cancer, focusing on the roles that fat and fiber might play in these life-threatening diseases. As we'll see, there is every hope that modifying our diets might indeed provide a key to prevention. A woman in the prime of her life undergoes a mammogram to locate a tumor in her breast. She joins the 1 in 10 American women who each year are diagnosed as having breast cancer. Though surgery, drugs, and radiation therapy certainly save many women, or at the very least prolong their survival, the fact is that in most Western nations, breast cancer remains a major killer. But the same is not true the world over.
The most blatant difference that we've found so far is between a country such as Japan, where only 4 out of 100,000 people die of breast cancer, whereas in the United States we have 26 or more out of 100,000.
On the other hand, when the Japanese migrate to the United States, many of them soon adopt a Western lifestyle, including a fat-rich diet. Studies have shown that within 3 generations, the risk faced by Japanese American women approaches that of the host population at large. Thus, a genetic difference in susceptibility to breast cancer appears to be ruled out. For over 2 decades, American Health Foundation President Dr. Ernst Windner has pioneered research into the prevention of disease, especially cancer. During the 60s and 70s, he and other researchers scoured medical records worldwide.
At one time, years ago, I wrote a paper entitled, "The World is My Laboratory." And I've been pretty much all over the world to look for these unusual leads that relate to cancer and heart disease and other diseases. And in many instances, they relate to what we eat. It is really the totality of evidence that causes us to believe, and others to believe, that dietary fat is a significant factor in the etiology of many types of cancers, particularly including cancer of the breast.
Indeed, national mortality rates for breast cancer seem to be closely associated with the intake of dietary fat. Near the top lies the United States and much of Western Europe. At the other end, Japan and Latin America, where the average fat intake is much lower and breast cancer occurs but rarely. In between fall the Mediterranean countries, Spain, Greece, and Italy. A similar, though weaker, pattern is observed for cancer of the colon and prostate. However, though studies of human populations do suggest a cancer connection to diet, they in no way prove it, nor can they indicate how different nutrients might influence the course of tumor development. At the American Health Foundation's Naylor-Dana Institute in Valhalla, New York, researchers are probing the actions of fats and other foods on tumor formation and behavior. Here, the focus is placed chiefly on laboratory animals. Under carefully controlled conditions, nutrients can be individually manipulated and combined to study their effects on the development of cancer. The aim is twofold: taking leads from the population studies to confirm that diet can indeed affect the incidence of cancer, and secondly, to understand how what we eat may raise or diminish our susceptibility to tumors.
Cancer is divided into roughly into three different stages: initiation, promotion, progression. The initiation stage is an early genetic change. It may be caused by a virus, a chemical, or an X-ray. The changed cell will not become a tumor, however, without being influenced by what we call promoting agents.
Suspected tumor promoters include many environmental pollutants as well as numerous substances in the food we eat. On the other hand, some studies suggest that certain nutrients, particularly beta-carotene and vitamin C, present in many fruits and vegetables, may help retard or even reverse the promotion phase. If, however, there is no inhibition, the tumor could eventually turn malignant and spread.
The last stage progression is synonymous with metastasis, and this stage is the lethal and most dangerous stage of cancer.
By feeding animals diets incorporating different proportions of oils, Dr. Leonard Cohen and researchers elsewhere have shown repeatedly that, at least in rodents, a fat-rich diet promotes the formation of breast tumors, both spontaneous and chemically induced.
That's a good girl. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to just examine the breasts on both sides of the little rat here. Okay. And she has some very small nodules on the right side here on the lower right-hand quadrant.
Okay. So I'm going to record that here. Even though fat appears to be a fairly benign element in the diet, it turns out that it has very, very important effects on physiology. Fat can alter hormone levels in the body. It can alter the production of a material called prostaglandin, which is like a hormone but very potent biologically. The membranes of cells are composed of fat, and the types of fats in these membranes can actually change the way cells act and respond to stimuli within the body. The dietary fat can also alter the immune system and the way in which the immune system responds. And other factors, even in the bowel, the dietary fat can alter the development and types of bacteria in the bowel, which can alter body metabolism as well.
Nearby, researchers at the Foundation are studying how such changes in fat metabolism might be linked to colorectal cancer. Bile acids formed from fat in the liver are chemically transformed in the colon by digestive bacteria. It turns out that the metabolic products, secondary bile acids, may prove harmful over time.
And we and others have shown these secondary bile acids enhance the tumors, colon tumors, and also act as promoting factors for the cancer of the colon.
However, animal studies by Dr. Reddy and others indicate that dietary fiber may help retard tumor development in the large intestine. Fiber, it seems, protects by diluting the secondary bile acids, inhibiting their cancer-promoting activity and hastening their passage through the gut.
If we can reduce their fat intake, at the same time, if we can increase our fiber intake, probably we can cut down the risk for the development of the cancer of the colon.
The most interesting aspect of promotion is that it takes a period of 10 to 20 years in human beings. This is a very valuable opening for us because during that time you have a chance to remove promoting agents, and because the promotion process is reversible, we can actually delay or actually prevent the appearance of a clinical tumor.
In 1982, the National Academy of Sciences issued the first major report linking diet, nutrition, and cancer. Specifically, the report recommended that Americans cut their fat consumption by a quarter, from 40 to 30% of total calories. Subsequent reports by the National Cancer Institute and the American Cancer Society have recommended likewise. Yet when it comes to preventing cancer of the breast, studies on laboratory animals indicate that such a reduction of fat may be insufficient. In order to significantly lower the incidence of tumors in the animals, their fat intake must be halved to just 20% of total calories. But could the same measure actually cut the incidence of breast cancer in women? Late in 1987, a team sponsored by the National Cancer Institute prepared to launch a major study on this very question. Named the Women's Health Trial, the proposed study sought to follow for 10 years 32,000 postmenopausal women deemed at risk for the disease, a third of whom were to maintain a low-fat diet. However, amid much controversy, the trial, projected to cost $130 million, was halted by the NCI. Dr. Peter Greenwald directs the Institute's Division of Cancer Prevention and Control.
Let me ask you about the women's health trial. It was to be an extensive test of diet and breast cancer, which is a terrifying prospect for a woman, and yet that's been put on the shelf. Why was that?
One problem is how accurately can a person describe what she's eating? The state of the art for determining what people eat is not awfully good. And some of our scientists were worried about whether it's good enough for this trial. Another question was, how much of a reduction would you expect in breast cancer? Some of our scientists thought that at most we might get a reduction of 1/4 rather than 1/2. Well, if that is true, we didn't have a big enough study.
Apart from the size of the study, some scientists questioned its very premise. They argued that it is total calories consumed and not simply those contained in fat, which pose the major risk for breast cancer. While some animal experiments appear to support this view, different studies indicate that, on the contrary, dietary fat plays a specific role in tumor development.
We have to have a full understanding of mechanisms. We have to have ability to show that when you make specific changes, you end the cancer risk.
This is the sesame chicken, and it's made from chunks of a skinless, boneless chicken breast with an added sauce for flavor.
At the American Health Foundation's headquarters in Manhattan, nutritionist Dr. Andrea Boyer demonstrates the joys of low-fat cooking.
We've decided that the portion size should be approximately 6 ounces, and we've calculated our calories based on a 6-ounce portion.
The women attending the class are participating in a pilot study aimed at overcoming 2 of the concerns raised by the women's health trial: the need to be able to precisely monitor risk and the need for an objective measure of compliance with a low-fat diet.
Approximately 3/4 cup of brown rice. We've chosen the brown rice because it's a good source of complex carbohydrates and fiber.
We chose to focus on premenopausal women because they have well-defined risk factors, particularly a risk factor because of a family history and a risk factor because of benign breast disease, not itself cancerous, but where, when you examine the tissue under the microscope, you can identify markers of risk. The studies that we are doing now are intended to tune our selection of patients so that we truly are working with those at high risk, to have the biological marker of risk that will also be a marker of compliance.
A number of hormones linked to fat metabolism are now believed to interact and promote the development of breast cancer. The best known are the estrogens, but others, including a protein hormone called prolactin, are implicated, particularly in premenopausal women. In selecting prolactin as a potential marker, Dr. Rose hopes to accurately measure and follow changes in risk as the women cut down on fat.
We have good data now that show that in premenopausal women, when you reduce the fat intake to 20% of calories, it does indeed reduce the circulating levels of estrogen, and it reverses the abnormal levels of bioactive prolactin.
I'd like to contrast the calories and the fat content of this meal with another choice one might have. This platter has 800 calories. This one has 400 calories with the salad. This is less than 20% of calories from fat. This is over 50% of calories from fat.
I never considered my diet to be particularly high in fat, and it turns out that it's not just the potato chips, it's also the cheddar cheese, and it's, you know, almost everything good in life seems to be very fatty.
We don't hand out a diet and say, follow this. We tell them specifically where they can make substitutions, what might be a better choice at breakfast or a better choice at dinner.
V8, good, vegetable salad. Again, so low-fat Italian dressing, again on the salad. How much do you think it was? Show me using this. Teaspoon? Okay.
We really find that looking at somebody's 4-day food diary, analyzing it, knowing exactly how much fat is in that person's diet, helps us to individually tailor a low-fat diet that will be acceptable to that client. It takes some getting used to because 20% is a severe reduction. It's half the fat that the normal American eats. You really have to make very big changes in your diet.
But how about the population at large? The sacrifice, it turns out, may not be entirely necessary. This is because when it comes to influencing the development of tumors, not all fats behave alike. Indeed, there is mounting evidence that changing the types of fats we eat might also help lower our risks for some forms of cancer. Take the peoples of the Mediterranean countries. Though they consume large amounts of olive oil, they suffer relatively low rates of breast cancer compared with those in the U.S. and most of Western Europe. The same is true for the Eskimos, who rely on a diet heavy in fat, but rich in fish and marine oils.
What is fascinating about this is that we see a parallel in animal studies. When we feed animals olive oil or marine oils, we find that the development of tumors is slowed considerably and we get a lower incidence of tumors.
In contrast, saturated fats, such as those contained in butter and shortenings, and most polyunsaturates, including corn or safflower oils, tend to act as tumor promoters. Working in collaboration with researchers at New York's Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, Rutgers University researcher Dr. Rashida Karmali is investigating the potential cancer-preventing properties of fish oils, rich in so-called omega-3 fatty acids. Biochemical studies suggest that these fatty acids might work through two distinct modes of action. In the first place, the omega-3 acids appear to block the formation of prostaglandins, hormone-like substances that can otherwise stimulate the growth of tumor cells and suppress the immune system's ability to fight them. In addition, omega-3 fatty acids may protect by shifting estrogen metabolism away from an abnormal tumor-promoting biochemical pathway.
The evidence that we had in animal models was getting stronger, and we felt that we had enough data to undertake a pilot phase 2 trial in women who are high at risk for breast cancer.
We've been studying women at increased risk for breast cancer because of a genetic predisposition, that is, their family members, their mother or sister had breast cancer.
My mother, my mother's sister, and my mother's niece all had breast cancer and are all deceased now. I'm particularly interested in how I can prevent my chances of coming down with the disease.
Gloria, these are last year's mammograms. These are this year's mammograms, and they look fine and don't show any. We asked women in the study to take 9 capsules a day of the omega-3 fatty acids or an exactly matching placebo non-active agent. The preliminary results suggest to us that this abnormality of estrogen metabolism may well be altered in a favorable direction by the use of omega-3 fatty acids. We're not advocating that women go out and buy omega-3 fatty acids and consume 9 capsules a day. It certainly is, however, reasonable that women, particularly those at increased risk, consider dietary modifications, pay particular attention to the amount of fat that they eat, and perhaps the types of fat they eat.
If we do want to introduce omega-3 fatty acids in the diet, the approach that we should really take is to introduce fish more often in our diet, at least about twice a week. We don't want to encourage people to continue to have bad food habits and then look for a quick fix to correct all the bad habits. What we know about cancer suggests that it takes a long time for the cancer to develop. The promotion phase in humans is a very long time, and it's prudent to start the dietary modification from early on.
If we would educate our children very early in life with the right kind of food choices, they would grow up and eat a diet that they would consider normal, which you and I today might find not normal at all.
Riverview Medical Center in Red Bank, New Jersey. In a unique educational program offered by the hospital, nutritionist Ann Tobias shares the latest information on the diet-cancer connection with a group of local 4th graders.
Would anybody like to give a definition of what cancer is?
Like it makes you weak and like you don't feel very good.
No, you don't feel very good. and it changes the cells of your body so they aren't the same. They're not healthy and normal. And the abnormal cells grow very, very rapidly. That's what happens. Children often don't think about those things. However, they can. They have very vivid imaginations, and if you can project what their life will be in 10 years and what they do now, what kind of influence it does have, that's the way we approach it usually. And where do you find fat? What foods?
Well, like steak, you can like see some like fat chunks.
Right. It's exactly. You can see it running through the tissue. Fat is contained in substances like butter and margarine, like oil, and because butter and margarine enhance the flavor of food, they used a great deal.
We're learning about how to reduce the chance of getting cancer, and like as you grow up, you might be choosy about what you eat.
If you ate fiber foods like whole wheat bread and brown rice, that would that could prevent cancer. And vitamins and minerals like vitamin A foods and vitamin C foods like the citrus fruits and spinach.
Do you know what these great looking vegetables have in common? Yes.
Unfortunately, we all have to eat them.
Unfortunately, we all have to eat them. They can taste good too. Yeah, but what do they have in common? Yes.
They have a lot of good vitamins in them.
Yes, they do. And cancer-causing agents will be destroyed by being in the presence of cruciferous vegetables. It's really important to catch a child's taste buds early because the foods that you remember from your childhood evoke lots of other things in your response to food later on. One of the other nutrients that helps our bodies fight cancer is vitamin A. And vitamin A, if you have a child who isn't exposed to anything but fast foods, that's what they're going to want later in life. I particularly began to become interested in cancer as a means of enabling children to make these choices all through their lives. And if you get a child, you get not only a child, but you influence their family also.
And by having the children and having the parents, you have the community, and this, I believe, is the way the future must be in terms of preventive medicine for this country.
I think that it is incorrect to say to the public that we have a war on cancer and that you can conquer cancer in our lifetime. I do not think we will be conquering it. I think that it is much more realistic to talk about controlling cancer and preventing cancer.
It's very important that we focus on basic research, on cancer prevention research, on early detection, and on therapy. It's not one or the other. We have over 900,000 people diagnosed with cancer each year. We cannot prevent them all. Our current methods are a halfway technology. The best we can do now about prevention is to do things that lower your risk.
Given the contradictory nature of some of the evidence, should you be in the business now of making any sort of recommendations on diet and cancer?
We think people now should cut down on the fat in their diet, should keep trim, should eat a variety of foods high in fiber, vegetables, fruits, whole grains. At the same time, we need a research program to refine that information. Today, we talk about cutting down total fat in your diet. There are different types of fat that may act somewhat differently. We talk about increasing the variety of fiber-containing foods. Well, there are many types of fiber, and we have to learn the specific effect of each one. We think it's reasonable for the public to know about it. Prudence is on the side of making changes now. There's a cost to not doing anything. There are over 900,000 people that get cancer each year. We want to do what we can and give the advice we can to reduce that even while the research continues.
In 1984, the National Cancer Institute set a goal of cutting America's cancer death rate in half by the year 2000. According to the NCI's own forecasts, consuming less fat and eating more fiber alone could, by that same year, save upwards of 30,000 lives. Achieving such targets will surely demand a major commitment of resources aimed specifically at cancer prevention, particularly through changing the American diet. Certainly, some of the links between diet and cancer remain to be proven. Yet many scientists believe that enough is now known to justify prudence in what we eat, beginning at an early age. For Innovation, I'm Jim Hartz. Further information on diet and cancer can be obtained from the following organizations.